All right, so I am back on the Fanalytics channel again, this time doing the top 10 Silver Age Fantastic Four keys. So if you haven't seen one of these before, I did the first half of these over on my channel. I did numbers 10 through 6, and here on the Fanalytics channel, we are going to be doing numbers 5 through 1, as well as consolidating all of that information together at the end and looking at which ones are maybe good to be picking up right now, which ones you want to avoid, and which ones you might just want to put on that watch list. Now, like I have done in the other top 10 videos I've done here on the Fanalytics channel, we've also got a giveaway as part of this. Now, this time we're going to have two different winners. We've got two books that we're giving away. First one is this Action Comics number 340. Great Silver Age DC key, first appearance of the Parasite. Then the other book, because we could not get a hold of the winner from a couple months ago, we are going to be giving away the X-Men number 7 again. So this is the second appearance of the Blob. Want to make sure we get these books to everybody. So if you want a chance to win these, make sure you leave a comment letting us know what is your favorite Fantastic Four Silver Age key. Also, like the video, and you have to subscribe to the Fanalytics channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button that's somewhere down there. Then also, to help us get a hold of you, make sure that you also leave a comment on my channel. It just really helps if you leave a comment on my channel on that video as well. I will then leave a comment under your comment and have you reach out to me either via email or on Instagram, and I will get that book mailed out to you. So remember, in this video, you got two different chances to win. So make sure to leave those comments with what is your favorite Fantastic Four Silver Age key. So for this top 10 video, like I mentioned earlier, we're going through the top 10 Fantastic Four Silver Age keys. These are in order of what I consider to be the importance of the book, not necessarily of value. I already covered 10 through 6 on the prior video, but you don't need to go back and watch that one first. You can go watch that one later. We are going to look at all the consolidated results together at the end regardless. So let's get into these books. All right, so here we are into the top 5 Fantastic Four Silver Age keys. Now, if you haven't watched the first part of this video yet, I'll give you a little bit of information about what we're presenting here on the screen. And so on the top there, we've got the CGC census data. And so what this is this just gives you an idea of the approximate rarity or availability of these books. I've also got a grade there. And what that grade is the most common grade for this book. I like to use the most common grade because it means I have the most sales data available. And so I'm most likely to have accurate sales numbers, more representative sales numbers for what this book is going for. Now, on the lower part of the screen there, I also have some pricing data. I've got the current price, which is what you would call basically the fair market value, what that book is going for right now. Then I have what I refer to as the pre-boom annual return. So this is what this book was doing prior to the comic boom. Now, normally I use 2015 to 2020. But for Fantastic Four, I had to use 2012 to 2017 for a lot of these books because quite a few of them took a huge spike around 2018 when Marvel reacquired the rights to the Fantastic Four for movies and that kind of thing. So I had to use an earlier time period to get those numbers so I didn't have that spike in 2018 impacting my values. Now, you also see here that I have a range in pricing. Now, the reason is that I applied that pre-boom annual return from the 2017 price, as well as that re-baselined 2018 to 2020 price. And so that gives us a range, and it does make things a little more difficult. It's definitely something I noticed with these Fantastic Four books. There is a little more variability with them, a little more potential risk, because if you don't believe in those re-baseline 2018 to 2020 prices, then you're going to think you have a much larger downside risk. So just something to consider when you're looking at this information. Now, let's get back to Fantastic Four number 49. So this is the first full appearance of Galactus, second appearance of Silver Surfer, first time you have Galactus and Silver Surfer on the cover of a comic. There are quite a few copies of this that are graded. There are 6,186 total copies with 5,513 universals. The most common grade is a 5.0 with 628 copies graded, 560 of those being universals. Now for the pricing data. This book currently goes for around $675 in a 5.0, had a pre-boom annual return of 9%. So if we look at what this book was going for in 2017, it was a $125 book, which is just wild. was a $125 book. If you apply a 9% annual return to that book, it would just be a $210 comic today. Now, when Marvel reacquired the rights to the Fantastic Four, this book had a big jump in price. It re-baselined at around $600 in 2020, meaning if you applied that 9% growth, it would be a $775 book today. So at its current price of $675, that means you either have a 15% upside, it means it's overcorrected a little bit, or you have a 69% downside, a pretty substantial downside risk. Now, I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think Marvel has really hurt the values of this book, Fantastic Four 48, Fantastic Four 1, just because of all the question on when we're going to get the Fantastic Four, who's going to be playing the characters. It just feels like we haven't gotten any real news or anything that people feel good about with it. And I think that's really hurt these books. Now, I don't think there's any chance that these books go back down to the pricing from 2017. I don't see it happening. It's too popular of a book, but there is clearly some risk here, and I would be careful with Fantastic Four number 49. All right, let's move on to number 4. Here we've got Fantastic Four number 52, first appearance of the Black Panther. Even more copies of this one on census. We've got 7,273 total copies with 6,295 universals. Most common grade is also a 5.0 with 725 total copies with 610 of those being universals. Now at a 5.0, this book is currently going for around $580. It also had a 9% return. Now this one, we could actually use the 2015 to 2020 data, and that's just because Black Panther became part of the MCU much earlier. So you had that adjustment a lot earlier on. Now, this book was going for around $550 in 2020. We apply that 9% annual return, and today that means it would be going for $710. This means it should have an upside potential of 22%. However, you definitely want to be a little bit cautious with this book. With the passing of Chadwick Boseman, there's a lot of question around the Black Panther, and this book has continued to trend down. So while, yes, it does look like it's undervalued right now, I would still be cautious with it. I would want to see the pricing on this book make a turn back to the positive direction before I really started getting into it, just because it has a lot of negativity tied to it right now on the downside. So yes, looks reasonable with the pricing, but I would be cautious. Now, it had a major record price. This one in a 5.0 hit $1,595. It is down 64% since then. That is a pretty significant correction, but still, I'd remain cautious. All right, so now on to number 3. We've got Fantastic Four number 48. This is the first appearance of Silver Surfer, the first cameo appearance of Galactus, and there are a ton of these books graded. This is the largest number so far that we've talked about. Almost 10,000 copies. We've got 9,414 graded copies with 8,040 of them being universals. Just in a 4.5, which is the most common grade, there are 853 total with 739 universals. Now that 4.5 today is going for around $900. And from 2012 to 2017, this book had an 11% growth rate. But it's crazy how affordable this book was prior to that jump that it got from Marvel. 2017, this book was going for around $340 in a 4.5. So because of that, we've got this range again in the values for this book. Based on the 2017 price, this would be going for $635 today, but it re-baselined in that 2018 to 2020 period and was about a $1,000 book. Based on that, this would be a $1,365 book today. So we've got a pretty big range here. We've got a downside potential of 30% and an upside potential of 52%. So another one of these books that I would just be putting it on my watch list. I would be cautious around it because I think it definitely has some downside risk to it. But if Marvel announces Fantastic Four, if Marvel announces the Silver Surfer, Galactus, that kind of stuff, I feel like all bets might be off because it has had a pretty substantial correction. This book had peaked in a 4.5 at $3,600. It is down 75% from there. This is one of the biggest corrections I've seen with any book. So it has had a major, major correction. Silver Surfer and Galactus are a lot of people's favorite characters, myself included. And so if we do actually get those characters again on screen and they're done well, then I could see the prices climbing for this. But one I would be putting on that watch list because there is just some downside risk to it today. All right, let's move on to number 2. Here we've got Fantastic Four number 5. First appearance of Doctor Doom. Talk about this book quite a bit because it's surprising how often I see this book up for sale. It seems like nobody is holding this book. Everybody is selling this book. And this has a lot less copies than a lot of the other books that we've talked about. Just 2,239 copies on census with 1,778 universals. Most common grade is a 4.0 with 240 on census with 203 universals. Now at that 4.0, this is a pricey book. This is one of the most expensive books we'll talk about. We've only got one left, so you can guess what that one is. But a 4.0 is currently going for around $8,000. And it had a pre-boom annual return of 11%. That puts its estimated value between $2,712 and $6,000. So those prices are based on the fact that in 2017, this book in a 4.0 was going for around $1,450. We apply that 11%, we get $2,712. Then if we look at the rebaseline price, so in 2020, this was around a $4,400 book. That would put it at a $6,000 book today. What you see here is, yeah, we've got a range, but all of that range is below where that book is selling right now. Downside potential between 66% and 25%. For me, even though I think it's a cool book, it's a great first appearance, I would be avoiding this book right now. I think there's still a lot of downside risk to it. I see it sell all the time. People just seem to be constantly selling it, so I would be cautious if you were looking for a copy of this book. It also hasn't corrected as much as a lot of the other ones. It had a peak sale in this grade of $13,200. It's down 39%, which may sound like a lot, but we've talked about books that are down up to 75%. I feel like this book has not corrected enough and still has some room to give. All right, so now on to number 1. No surprise, it is Fantastic Four number 1. First appearance of the Fantastic Four. Has around the same number of copies, actually a few more copies than Fantastic Four number 5 on the census. We've got 2,889 total with 1,976 universals. Most common grade is a 3.0 with 343 total and 256 universals. Now in that 3.0, this book is currently going for $9,500. Actually had a surprisingly low annual return prior to the comic boom. A lot of these other books, you're generally seeing 10, 11%, 9%. This one was just 4% regular return between 2012 and 2017. That puts its current value at somewhere between $4,800 and $9,450. This is because in 2017, this book was going for around $3,800. We applied that 4% return. We're at around a $4,800 book today. If we look at the price that it rebaselined to in 2020, it was going for around $8,400. That would put it at $9,450. So that puts us anywhere from a downside of 50% to about even. Basically, if you thought that it had rebaselined at $8,400 and that's its real new value, then you'd say it's going for about what it should today, meaning you don't think there's very much risk. But if you don't believe in those 2018 to 2020 prices, there's a lot of potential downside risk to it. So again, another book that I would just be watching, wouldn't necessarily be grabbing right away. And this is coming from somebody that has a copy for sale. I always try to be as straightforward and open as possible in these types of videos, and I'm not going to tell you that you should be going out and buying something that if the numbers don't tell you, you should. So with this one, I'd be putting it on that watch list. Again, like with some of these other things, it has corrected quite a bit. It had peaked at $26,100 in a 3.0. It is down 64% from there. Similar to Silver Surfer, Galactus, Doctor Doom, if we get these characters on screen, if they're done well, that could have a completely different impact on these books. But at least right now, put this one on the watch list. All right, so with that, let's move on to looking at all of these books together, all the prices together. So on this screen combined, we've got all of these books in order with their grades, the price estimates, the annual returns, just so we can take a look and see which ones look like they might be reasonable to be picking up right now, which ones you want to avoid, and which ones you want to put on that watch list. So first, let's look at the potential buys. So we've got 3 books here. So if you remember, the first one here is Fantastic Four number 52. It looks very appealing. It has the biggest potential upside, has a solid annual return of 9%. However, like I mentioned earlier, I would be cautious just because this book has been trending down and we don't know what Marvel is planning to do with that Black Panther character. So, downside risk is probably relatively low, but I would still be cautious with it. It's a potential buy, but I would be careful about it right now. The other two, we've got Fantastic Four number 12, that classic Hulk thing cover. I think that's one of the things that really helps it. It's not really a first appearance that's driving that. It's this classic cover that just a lot of people have always wanted. Got that upside potential of 13% and again, a solid 9% annual return. Then Fantastic Four number 45. This one, it's more just because it feels like this is overcorrected. We've got a major Silver Age key, first appearance of the Inhumans, 4.0 going for just $150. It just feels a little too cheap right now. And so it has that upside potential of 17% based on the prices historically. Now let's move on to which books we should avoid. First one on the list there, Fantastic Four number 5. Even though this is a very popular character, one of the best villains out there for Marvel, based on the numbers, it just has not corrected enough yet. It has between 66 and 25% downside potential with an annual return of 11%. That means you've got 2 or 3 years at least before it gets back in line with where it seems like it should be. So I would be very, very cautious right now if you were looking to buy Fantastic Four number 5. Remember, there's always that caveat. If you come across it for a great price, sure, go ahead and pick it up. But at the current market prices, what it's generally selling for, I would be careful. The other one is Fantastic Four number 46. It just doesn't seem like it's corrected enough yet. It has corrected a lot. It's just that it's not quite as popular of a book as Fantastic Four 45. Still appears to have some downside to me. The risk is relatively low. This is a very affordable book. When you've got a 7.0 going for $250 for a Silver Age Marvel key, it's not like it's all that expensive in comparison, especially to some of the other books on this list, but it does have that downside risk of 20%. Now that leaves us with 5 books that are all on this watch list area. And a lot of these are these ones where you've got a big range. And it's just because these books re-baselined in that 2020 to 2018 time period. And so it puts some question into where these books should really be selling today. So you've got Fantastic Four number 1, 48, 49, 2, and 4. I mean, some major books. First Fantastic Four, first Galactus, first Silver Surfer, first Skrulls, and then the first Silver Age Submariner. I mean, these are some of the biggest books here on this list, but I would still just put them on the watch list. I wouldn't be rushing out to buy them today. I would wait and see what happens. With a lot of these books, I want to see a turn in the pricing. I don't want to see them continuing to trend down and then buying it and it trending down more. I want to be cautious with it just because they do have that potential for that downside. They do also have this upside potential. Like if you really think that the 2018 to 2020 prices were that new baseline for these books, then go ahead and buy them. They seem like they are at pretty good values right now. But a lot of these books have been trending down, and I want to see that trend change before I jump into spending, the thousands of dollars that are generally required to pick up a copy of one of these major Silver Age keys. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video, got some useful information. Maybe if you've been considering picking up one of these Fantastic Four Silver Age keys, give you some info on if maybe it's time to go after them or if you want to just put on your watch list or avoid. Remember, if you want a chance to win one of these 2 books, Action Comics 340, X-Men number 7, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the Fanalytics channel somewhere down here, and leave a comment with what is your favorite Fantastic Four Silver Age key. Also, it really helps, like I mentioned before, if you leave a comment on my channel as well. It really helps with reaching out to you. So hope you enjoyed this video. Also, make sure to go sign up for the Fanalytics Beta access through their Instagram. I'll also have the link to it in the description of this video. The beta release is coming out on November 6th. We've got an official date, so make sure to sign up so you can be ready for that release. And with that, I will see you in the next video.